So we're going to get into what this book is called Parthia, the Forgotten Ancient Superpower and its Role in Biblical History. But this is by Stephen M. Collins. This is a Parthian battery. You're telling you a battery, huh? It says here Parthia's Israelite cities. One prominent Parthian city was named Asak. Asak, Isaac, literally, where Arsaces was crowned king. The name Asak clearly represents the name Isaac. The name Isaac had been attached to Sakae, Scythians, long before Parthia ever became independent. Strabo records that Alexander the Great noted a region named Asak Canus, which was traversed in Alexander's expedition to India. What India? India Superior, North America? The presence of the name of Isaac. Remember how close these places are, to the Bering Strait and going into America, right? The presence of the name of Isaac in both Parthian and Scythian context confirms the many secular accounts that they were related kinsmen. As further evidence of the Israelite origins of the Parthians, some Parthian cities were given Israelite names. An early capital of the Parthians was named Dara. That's a big one right there. That is Dara or Darda, the founder of Troy or progenitor of the Trojans, right? Which is the exact name of one of the patriarchs of the tribe of Judah. The Parthian province, so that was from 1 Chronicles 2:36. The Parthian province of Media, Atropatene, was located southwest of the Caspian Sea. The famous historian George Rawlinson records that in Parthian times, its chief city was Gaza. Listen, Gaza. The Gaza Strip was somewhere else. This city was apparently named after the Canaanite Philistine city of Gaza, which is mentioned often in the Bible. This further indicates that the inhabitants of Atropatene had come from Palestine, or the real Holy Land. 2 Kings 17:6 records that the Assyrians had placed Israelite captives in the cities of the Medes. So it is not surprising that we later find a city of the Medes bearing the name of a city of old Palestine. If the Parthian province of Hyrcania, located southeast of the Caspian Sea, we find that 2 of its chief cities or sites were named Samarian and Karta. All right, Karta, just like Carthage, Karta, or New City. These names are clear evidence of the presence of Israelites from the former 10 tribe kingdoms of Israel. Israel's capital city was named Samaria, and 2 Kings 17:6-7 records that its inhabitants, after a 3-year siege, were transplanted by the Assyrians into Asia after the city fell. Centuries later, we find a Parthian city, Samarian, bearing the name of the capital city of the former kingdom of Israel. Only displaced Israelites would name a city after the capital of the kingdom of Israel. The city name Karta bears the same Semitic root word for that was present in the name Carthage. The word Karta or Kart are derived from the Hebrew word Kirjath or town or city and was documented previously. All right, and here's maps of that area, Caspian Sea. All right. There is even more evidence to support the Israelite origins of the Parthians. Initial Parthian coins were inscribed in Greek, but later Parthian coins bear Semitic inscriptions. The Parthian coins clearly depict their kings as having Caucasian features, thus the hijack supporting Semitic racial origin for the Parthian nation. So again, according to a lot of these people, uh, Caucasian, whatever that is, they're saying that's the Hebrew look. That's the hijack, guys. Come on, like we know. First of all, if they were so numerous and scattered across the whole four corners, they wouldn't look the same, right? And we just saw many representations of them looking different. All right. Whether we look at their language, history, names, or faces, all hard evidence indicates Semitic origin for the Parthians, debunking baseless speculation that the Parthians were a Mongoloid Oriental race from the interior of Asia. All right, so definitely not Mongoloid. We can agree on that. It is a myth that the 10 tribes of Israel became lost after they relocated to Asia. Matthew 10:6 states that, Jesus Christ told his 12 apostles to go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Biblical references to the house of Israel identify the 10 tribes of Israel, not the Jews who were called the house of Judah. All right, Jews are made up word, supposed to mean Judean or Judaic from the tribe of Judah, but it's not. Since Jesus Christ commissioned his apostles to go to the descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel, it is clear that Jesus knew that the Israelites could be found in specific homelands during his lifetime. So when you mean Jesus, do you mean Hosea or Joshua from the Old Testament? Hosea did make that prophecy about it being so numerous. The apostles expressed no surprise at this commission, as not one of them said, "No one knows where the 10 tribes are, or they well all lost long ago." We have earlier seen the evidence that Josephus, who like the apostles lived in the 1st century AD, also did not regard the 10 tribes of Israel as lost. Indeed, he knew so much about their whereabouts and condition that he identified one of their physical borders, and as their population had become very numerous by his lifetime. While the previous book in this series, listen to this, guys, documented that some Israelites settled in Europe and the British Isles, right? We got the whole drop, North Africa, and even North America. That's where they were coming from. You see it in reverse. The most numerous concentration of Israelites was in the vast Asian territories of the Parthians and Scythians, because neither Josephus nor Jesus Christ considered 10 tribes to be lost in the 1st century AD, and they referred to them as living in known geographical locations. It is apparent that the Asian locations of the 10 tribes of Israel were widely known among educated so-called Jews in the 1st century AD. All right, so now he's starting going to a lot of Christianity. So that's the hijack when you hear it. It is significant that the Apostle Peter wrote the book of 1 Peter from the city of Babylon. Babylon was a prominent city in the Parthian Empire during the apostolic era of the early Christian church. 1 Peter 5:13 indicates Peter had heeded Jesus Christ's instructions to go to the 10 tribes of Israel, as Peter declares that he wrote his epistle from the major city within the Parthian Empire. Historical accounts also assert that the Apostle Thomas traveled within Parthia. The early church historian Eusebius identified Thomas as an apostle sent to the Parthians and Andrew as an apostle sent to Scythia. All right. So guys, remember, the series the video, the Gospels according to Peace, all right, the New Testament. Were these their real names, or were these Romans, Edomites? Who were these people going and preaching to these Asians? Huh? There are historical records which link the Apostle Thomas to the Parthian Saka king Gondophares, mentioned earlier, who reigned in ancient India. Jesus Christ had commanded the apostles to go to the dispersed members of the 10 tribes of Israel and their first priority before evangelizing the whole world. Why then would Peter, Thomas, and Andrew go to Parthia and Scythia unless their people were Israelites? Well, that's kind of like a conjecture. These people were evangelizing supposedly Gentile nations, right, too. It is also noteworthy that there were Parthian believers in the gods of Israel who made pilgrimage to Jerusalem for the annual holy days of God. Acts 2:110 states that the Parthians were present at the Pentecost day when the Holy Spirit was poured onto the apostles. All right, so again, we're reading about the New Testament here. We got Dutch to hijack. All right, the Medes, Elamites, Elam was the son of Shem. So this is what I'm saying. These are the Medes. They're saying separate. So these were Semitic peoples too. Dwellers in Mesopotamia, mentioned in Acts 2:9, had also come to Jerusalem from regions within Parthia's empire. Since part of the 10 tribes had settled in Media, 2 Kings 17:6, it is likely that many Medes who made the pilgrimage to Jerusalem were Israelites, and from the 10 tribes, many were. Some of these pilgrims were Jews living in Parthia, but many were not Jews. Verse 10 indicates that these pilgrims were the Jews and proselytes, non-Jews. Since Israelites from the 10 tribes were non-Jewish, the term proselytes could apply to them as well as to Gentiles. They may not from the tribe of Judah. See, that word Jewish tries to get applied to the tribe of Judah and their descendants, but it really doesn't. That's what the Khazars eventually started calling themselves, to try to connect themselves to the line of Judah. It is also noteworthy that the Apostle Peter, while delivering his Pentecost message to both Jews and the devout pilgrims who had come to Jerusalem from Parthian regions, addressed them both as men of Judea. All right, so again, that's the New Testament. What Peter? Jupiter, Peter, Jupiter, Peter, right? Parthia, the covenant kingdom. One more smoking gun. Piece of evidence concerning the Israelite nature of the Parthian Empire needs to be presented. This piece of evidence concerns the name Parthia itself. In the previous book in this series, it was documented that the Hebrew word for covenant, brat, remember that Briton is people of the covenant, barat, the barats in India, that's the same covenant people, was commonly used wherever the empire of Israel was dominant. That's a big one right there. That's what we're going to get into. Brutus or Brit. This Hebrew word formed the basis for regions colonized by Israel. Britain and Brittany, or for migrating groups of Israelites, Brittonic Celts. It was noted that the Phoenicians' Israelite city of Carthage placed the Hebrew word BRT or Brit for its coin. In the ancient world, the letters B and P were interchangeable. Both are phonetically similar, labial consonants. In his book Phoenician Origin of Britons, Scots, and Anglo-Saxons, we're going to get into this book more. We've read a little bit from it. Going to read the whole book, hopefully, or as much as we can, right? From L.A. Waddell, who's the Phoenicians coming from America, right? It includes Israelites and those so-called Phoenicians. He points out that the Phoenicians interchanged the B's and the P's in various forms of the word Brit. He lists many ancient forms in which the root word Brit was expressed. Words such as Barat, is what I was saying, guys. Barat, just like in India, Rat, and Britannia are just a few examples of words based on the Hebrew word for covenant. All right, literally, guys, get that, clear. Briton, people of the covenant. Briton, a Briton means person or people of the covenant. Waddell notes the Phoenicians interchanged the B's and P's in the Mediterranean world and adds that the Phoenicians of Cilicia called the city of Tarsus Parthia. Notice the similarity between the Phoenician Parthia and the later Asian empire Parthia. Listen, guys, it's literally almost the same. It's the same word. So they can say that could be Parthia, covenant place. And it says here, Israelites, the covenant people. The Bible records that the tribes of Israel under Moses made a covenant with God, a promise, right, a contract. The Israelites retained the unique awareness that they were the covenant people as an enduring part of their culture. The Hebrew word for covenant, brat, was placed on people, places, and Phoenician, Carthaginian coins. The presence of the Hebrew word for covenant on ancient peoples or places is a strong identifier for locating where the 10 tribes of Israel migrated after leaving Palestine. Listed below are important examples. So it says here, Hebrew word for covenant, without vowels, barat, berith, barat, like ancient name of India, barat, brit, or berith, birthright, literally. Tribal and place names associated with migrating Israelites. It says here, Briton, Breton, Brittany, Brittonic Celts, etc. Place names, Britannic Islands, Brittia or Petritia. Greek names, Britannic Islands or Parthia. Brittia is Parthia. It's the same word. That's what he's telling you. The Encyclopedia Britannica confirmed that the Greeks interchanged P's and B's, recording that the Greeks referred to the Britannic Isles, the British Isles, as the Brittany or Britannic Islands. All right, did you guys know that? Islet Samis A 17th century British historian also noted that the B's and the P's were easily convertible in ancient context. So how many times does that happen with different words and history and places and people? Imagine, think about that. In ancient context, right? It changes everything. Since it is documented that the Greeks interchanged P's and B's, their accounts of Parthia could just as easily have been written as Parthia or Brittia. In these forms, the Hebrew word for covenant, Brit and Brith, is clearly evident, representing the B as a P, and was done in the ancient world. The consonants of Berith, the Hebrew word for covenant, become Parith, the exact consonants of the word Parthia. The identity of the Parthians is no longer a mystery. They were the covenant people of the 10 tribes of Israel, and their very name declared to the world that they were the covenant people. L.A. Waddell, the author of the book cited above, understood that words formed from the consonants BRT identified the Phoenicians. But he never grasped that the Phoenicians were the Israelites. I've been trying to tell you guys, or that the Brit word designated the covenant people. Since his book contains Aryan racial themes, pro-white, Waddell never saw this self-evident fact because he was a white supremacist, because he's pro-bias Aryan, what he thought was white, racial. That's why he's saying racial themes. Waddell never saw, and this is what we get in a lot of these authors of these books. That's why I say dodge the hijack. They try and put themselves into it, like they try to and make black skin inferior. Anyways, he also did not realize that the terms Jewish and Israelite were not synonymous. There you go. In the appendix in his book, Waddell includes the following notation and a historical chart. So that's why I kind of like stayed away from the book a little bit, but we're going to get into it for sure because we already at the point where we know how to dodge the hijack, right? We can use our discernment. Okay. As the reader now knows, the Israelites of the 10 tribes had left Palestine by 721 BC and were well established in the Black Sea region and the Russian steppes by 587 BC. The Israelites were long absent from Palestine or the Holy Land, America, by 587 BC. Waddell should have said that the Jews were carried into captivity because it was Judah that was carried captive by Nebuchadnezzar, right? It was only Judah and Benjamin that was left behind, not the other 10 tribes. So that was the lines of Pharez, and that's where Nebuchadnezzar, got Zedekiah, killed all his male heirs, killed Zedekiah, and only the daughters survived of this. And the daughters with Jeremiah fled into Ireland, remember? A modern epigrapher, Dr. Barry Fell. They go Barry Fell. Shout out to Barry Fell, for finding all these old world inscriptions, writing in the Americas and letting us know that it's a lot older, showing us that America is the true old world, more corroboration, even though he's seeing in reverse, Barry Fell, but he has a really good book, America BC. So a modern epigrapher, Dr. Barry Fell, has also noted the interchangeability of the P's and B's in the ancient world. He gives the name P Celts to a group of Celts who use P and B interchangeably. These P Celts were the Brittonic Celts, and they gave birth to the Breton, Welsh, and Cornish languages, as well as the ancient Gaulish languages of Central and Eastern Europe. All right, that coming out of so-called Hebrew, guys. We broke it down. And why? Letting you know, Brittonic, people of covenant, Bret, people of the covenant. Some ancient cultures interchange the letters P and B. Both are labial consonants with similar sounds. The Brittonic Celts, who settled in ancient Britain, were known as Pete Celts because of this trait. The ancient Greeks also manifested this trait, using the term Britannic Islands for Britannic Islands. Since the term Parthia has also come to us from early Greek writers, substituting a B for the initial P of this word results in Parthia or Parthia, a clear proclamation by the Parthians that they were the descendant from the covenant people of the 10 tribes of Israel. The Brittonic Celts were Israelites who, retaining the name of the covenant people, migrated westward toward the British Isles and Europe. The Israelites who migrated northward and eastward into Asia became the Iberians, the Sakae, Scythians, and the Parthians. Therefore, we can see that the interchangeability of peace and bees accompanied the Israelites migrating both eastward and westward from ancient Palestine or ancient America, guys. Remember, every time he says Palestine, he just means the Holy Land, Jerusalem. In conclusion, let us briefly review the overwhelming evidence that the Parthians were Israelites of 10 tribes of Israel who had migrated to Asia. The Parthians were never recorded as being in Asia until after the 10 tribes of Israel relocated to Asia. The Bible records that these tribes were placed in the cities of the Medes. The Parthians' homeland adjoined the territory of the Medes. History records that the Parthians were first under the dominion of the Assyrians, and that we also the fate of those Israelites, and that was the fate of those Israelites taken captivity by the Assyrians. We can easily see that the names of the clans of Ephraim in the Parthian homelands and history is clear that the Parthians were the kinsmen of the Scythian Sacae, who were shown to be Israelites in the previous book. The Parthian cities of Asak, Dara, Gaza, Samarian all bore Hebrew names. Many groups from the Parthian Empire were among the worshippers of the God of Israel, who were in Jerusalem for a holy day of God, the first Christian Pentecost. The Parthians had many Hebrew Semitic words in their language and later placed Semitic inscriptions on their coins. The Parthian Arsaxid dynasty included the name of Isaac, and many individual kings had names that included the term Fares, right? That's the line of David, the line of Zedekiah, where the daughters came out of and ended up in Europe and met up with the line of Sarah, other Judah line, and fulfilled, got the lines together, connected the lines, right? Fulfilling God's promise to David that his descendants would perpetually serve as rulers over the 10 tribes of Israel. That scepter would always be with Judah. The very name Parthia preserves the Hebrew word Beret, with the B shown as P, proclaiming that they were the covenant people. The facts are clear. The Parthian Empire was an empire of Israelites who, having thrown off the dominion of their captors, were now ruling over their previous masters. If the history of the Parthian Empire was discussed in much depth in history texts, its Israelite origins would become obvious if they only, let us focus and research these people more clearly in history. It would have been obvious that they were Israelite. But we've got to remember that Israelite is not even supposed to be a real historical people. They want us to think that Israelites were just a Bible story. It's just a religion. And that's what I've been trying to tell you guys who are not into the whole Bible thing or just coming into this and you didn't grow up knowing all this stuff. You thought it was all just religion. That the Old Testament, guys, what they call the Torah, is history. It's a story of a real family. These people of the covenant, what they're talking about, these covenant people that made a promise to the Most High. That's their story in the Old Testament. And again, if this was followed up historically, not as religious, and not all this Christianity dogma and all that other stuff that's thrown onto us, perhaps we would have known, we would have seen, as he's saying here, obvious Israelite origins. Perhaps that is the reason why their history has been mostly deleted from history texts taught to the modern world. That's why they downplay. That's why they want you to know more about Romans, so-called Greeks, and all this other stuff, which is a hijack. The secular modern world has a strong anti-biblical bias. This is what I was just saying. Because y'all think the Bible means religion. That's what they made you think. So you don't know that there is history in there as well. And it does not want to find the lost 10 tribes, because doing so would powerfully validate the Bible, all right? Not the whole, but that it is history, literally, that it is history, all right? And this is a drawing. It says, in Gotarsis at Behistum. So, therefore, the true history of the mighty Phoenician, Carthaginian, Scythian, and Parthian empires have been mostly censored out of the historical record. These were Israelite nations, what he's trying to tell you. It is only a coincidence that the major world empires dropped from modern history texts are all Israelite empires. Is that a coincidence, guys? It's always been about Yasharallah. It's always been about Israel. And I've been wanting to say that, but people think I'm talking about religion, I'm religious. No, you guys don't get it. These are the covenant, these are the people who made a promise, an agreement with the Most High. Instead of teaching the facts about the major Israelite empires, history texts now include the fiction that Greece and Rome were the only world empires in ancient Egypt, right? And the only true civilized people in the ancient world, right? Yeah, you see, he's saying what I've been trying to tell you. It's been glorified. There was no so-called Greek or Rome, like empire like that. They glorified it, guys. So fiction includes fiction. The texts of history include fiction that Greece and Rome were not only world empires and the only civilized people in the ancient world. As the famous British historian George Rawlinson noted in a quote at the beginning of this chapter, such a viewpoint is both false and defective. False, false history. While Rome dominated the Mediterranean region and much of Europe, the Parthian Empire dominated Asian territory between the Euphrates and Indus rivers and between the Persian Gulf to the Russian steppes inhabited by the Scythian tribes. The Parthian Empire stretched approximately 1,900 miles from east to west and 1,000 miles from north to south. Parthia and Rome interacted as equals, yet few in the modern world have ever heard of Parthia's great empire. To demonstrate how dramatically the history of the Parthian Empire has been deleted from the modern world's awareness, go to any encyclopedia you can find and look up Rome and look up Parthia. All right, he's just letting you know. Go verify. You're gonna see. Count the pages devoted to each empire, and you will see how little modern readers are allowed to learn about the history of Parthia. The emphasis of Parthia's real role in history as a powerful rival to Rome is especially hard to justify when the classical Roman writers themselves wrote an immense amount of material about the power and scope of the Parthian Empire. So they're not even using the primary sources. Rome and Parthia of so-called Romans, right? Romans, so-called. Tag. Rome is a tag, guys. Greek is a tag. Rome and Parthia had major wars, Semitic conferences, and even period of detente. So we say Rome versus Parthia, we just talking about Edom, right? Edomite, Etruscans, Etrurian, like Edom versus Israelites. Literally, any detailed and honest comparison of the Roman Parthian empires will cause the reader to reconsider the question of which of these empires was barbarian and which one merits the term civilized, all right? Big one right there. The rarely revealed but true story of the ancient Israelite empire of Parthia will now be revealed in the following chapter. All right, we're going to go ahead and get that in another video. So make sure to tune in, subscribe, and like. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you're up to date, catch up on all the previous so you can understand when we're reading new books, and you can use the previous information to relate what we're reading and new books and new videos. All right. Thanks for again tuning in. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow.